Hello there and welcome to Tom's Warhammer Minis. The Jade Warriors of Grand Cathay are the mighty armoured backbone of the Celestial Dragon's army. They are the foot soldiers standing in rank and file, ready to defend Cathay and smite the forces of chaos. Now as models go, they are incredible looking. They pack a huge amount of detail which is done in the best way imaginable. It makes them look visually awesome, and it's not too much where it ends up being far too tedious to paint. Now this tutorial is my take on the box art, lore accurate scheme of these mighty warriors. The steps I go through I found to be the quickest but also the neatest way possible of doing these, especially when batch painting them. I'll be focusing solely on the banner bearer in this tutorial, as this character has the most unique features while also being identical in uniform to the rest of the squad. I will cover some additional details and explain what I did for them in the instances of like the drummer as well as the leader of the squad, but the real focus here is on the banner bearer character. Now with that said, it's time to crack on and paint. So grab your paint, grab your brushes and let's get hobbying. It's time to get started with our Jade Warriors of Grand Cathay. Now I've already painted all the other miniatures of this 10-man squad. The banner bearer has the most different details and it's the one I really wanted to focus on for this tutorial, but all the colours that I'm going to use have been used on the other ones. So to begin with, like the rest of the range, it's been primed in White Scar. The first colour I want to focus on is all the jade colouring, and I've used the box art throughout the models as guidance, but really it is this sash, the waist ropes, the shoulder pad trims, which can be messy on because we're going to be painting those in metallics, the hair plume. In this case for the banner you've got this shield here. Of course when you get to these bits it's down to you. It's the same on their main shields. Box art reference is really where I'd recommend here. The colour that I've used is Aeldari Emerald. Now to get it to this jade colour green, because it is quite strong as a contrast paint, we need to thin it down ever so slightly. We're talking 2 parts Aeldari Emerald, 1 part Lahmium Medium. The Lahmium Medium will help with the flow, especially in big areas like the sash. We don't want unnecessary pooling, and it thins it down ever so slightly to give this more flatter jade coloured look. So apply it on, take your time, use the box art as reference, and then we can move on to the next stage. Next up, we're base coating our red details, and for the banner bearer there are 2 distinct reds. Now across the other models I've only used Blood Angel's red, but as I say, this one's distinct. We have the actual banner itself, and you've got this long red wooden pole. Now it has this wooden texture. We're going to tint it with a brown in the next stage, but to keep it still red, but we'll worry about that later on. So to begin with, we're base coating with Baal Red. It's a very bright, very flat red, which is really good because you're not going to get real dry lines and pooling lines. It's just one consistent colour. So take your time, and I recommend using a small airbrush here. Because we prime the model in White Scar, because the banner is going to be white, we don't want to spoil those details. We can really save a lot of time painting here by being neat now, because we haven't got to relayer. So take your time, base coat that Baal Red. For the rest of the red details, so this is all the undercloth, as you can see around the model, between the arms. Try and be neat with the straps. Doesn't matter if we don't, because we're going to be darkening them with a real dark brown. So if we get red on it, it's not the end of the world. It just makes life easier, and it's good practice to be neat as well. So that colour is this pure Blood Angel's red, and like I said, I've done this across all the models of this unit. And next up, we're taking Gore Grunta Fur. Now I'm not filling this down at this stage, we're using it completely neat, and we're base coating all of our brown leather details. So again, check the box art for reference. Now there are a couple of points to note out. When we get to this area here, where you've got the armour panelling, we don't actually have to be neat. I'm going to be base coating them in metals, so we can just be a little bit messy. The areas we do need to be careful around are the green areas and the red areas, because we don't want to spoil those details. Another point to note, inside where the helmet is, in that neck area, we want to get the Gore Grunta Fur in there. Because it settles darker into the recesses, it just gives it that natural shaded look, especially because the outer area is in that brown leather. And we don't want to do it later on when the helmet's painted, otherwise we're going to spoil the details. Just be careful near the face, we don't want to catch that. If you do by accident, we can just relayer in White Scar. Now once that's done, we're going to take Gore Grunta Fur again, but we're going to thin it down now in a 1-to-1 mix. So 1 part Lahmium Medium, 1 part Gore Grunta Fur. Now where we're applying this, it's straight over the Baal Red wood. Now the reason being, it is a red kind of wood, but we don't want it too bright like Baal Red because that's not got that natural wooden look. What it's going to do is just going to tint it ever so slightly but still leave it red. Just take your time. Once again, this area, we don't have to be super neat. It's going to get painted black. Obviously, practicing being neat is always a good skill to have. Where we do need to be neat is these areas here. We don't want to spoil the jade. We don't want to touch the white. So again, I recommend a small airbrush. Once we've done that, we can move on to the next stage. Next up, we're going to apply the black details. And you can see, I've only just done the banner, which is why it's quite wet. It's not a glossy look. It'll be very dry and matte once it's done. And the colour for the banner, while we're talking about it, is going to be Black Legion. Now, there's a couple of things to note. It is a very large surface area. It's going to take time to do. And because we primed in White Scar, it's not going to be this rich black to begin with. So apply a first coat, let it dry completely, and apply a second coat. Now we do need to be careful, especially when we get to the edges. So I recommend again a small airbrush, especially to get into those little areas, and just really take your time. We don't need to worry about drying lines. This is the beauty of contrast painting. You have to be speedy, you have to be quick. With black, we don't, because it's going to be this pure, rich black. The other thing to note is because it's going to be standing as you're painting, it's going to have gravity pulling that paint down. We don't want to apply too much. Otherwise, it's going to pull heavily down into the recesses and spoil those white details. Now, while that's drying, and you can do this when the first base coat is drying, we're going to take Black Templar, that thinner looking black, which has got a nice bluish grey highlight. I'm going to apply that over the socks and all the belts and straps. Now take your time again. We don't want to catch all of our Aeldari Emerald details, all the brown details, or even the red details. What we can do though is we can make it settle a bit more heavily into the recesses, giving that natural highlight that you can already see. It's just going to make it really easy to pick out in the later stages. So as I say, the best way I've done this, do one coat of Black Legion to begin with on the banner. While that's drying, do the Black Templar. And then when that's done, hopefully that should be dry enough that you can apply the second base coat. And once that's done, we can move on to the next stage. Next up, I'm shading that Gore Grunta Fur to make it a darker leather. The colour I'm using here is Cygor Brown, and I thinned this in a 1-to-1 mix with Lahmium Medium. Quite simply treating it like a shade, just applying it all over, gives it a real dark, richer look. I've also applied this on the little string ropes that are at the top of the banner pole. Once that's done, moving on to the skin tone. And the colour I like to use here that works really well with the Grand Cathay range is Darkoath Flesh. Not thinned down, just apply it nice and neat. Don't overload your brush, just apply it into the face, settling into the recesses, same in the hands. And once that's done, we can move on to the metallics. Next up, we're base coating our metallics, and we're only using 2 colours here. The Jade Warriors have very bright armour, so for all of our silver details, I've base coated them in Iron Hand Steel. And quite obviously, for the gold details, I've base coated them in Retributor Armour. It is quite time consuming, there's a lot to apply. Again, for the banner, when doing those details, just take your time, try not to catch the white. Once it's all dried, we can then go on to shading our model. Next up, it's time to apply some shades to our miniature. And to begin with, I'm taking Nuln Oil, and I've applied this over quite a lot of different areas. So all of the silver, all of our Black Templar leather, all of the brown leather that we've done, and all of the Blood Angel's red details. So there's quite a lot to cover. Take your time. I haven't done the banner, this black bit here, but you can also apply the Nuln Oil into these recesses because they're not actual gaps, they are actual sculpted recesses in the flag on both sides. And you've got the little lines beneath, and it just gives that stronger definition. And once that's done for all of our gold details to make them rich and warm, I've shaded them with Reikland Fleshshade. Once that's done, we're then focusing on the Aeldari Emerald details, and to give them more definition, to give a stronger recess shade, I've shaded them with Coelia Greenshade. It's a matching colour and gives it a much stronger look. And then finally for the basing, what I've done here is in my usual Grand Cathay scheme, I've textured it with a Gren Badland. Obviously I did that at the beginning, and I've shaded it with Targor Rageshade. At this stage, our model is officially what I'd call battle ready, and it looks incredible. It'd be absolutely brilliant to have on the tabletop, but we're not leaving it there. We're going to apply some highlights and take it to that next stage. Next up, we're moving on to our highlights, and let's begin with that jade colour. And the colour I like to use here that works really well is Gorse Blaster Green. Apply it in thin edge highlighting, especially in the hair and where areas of light hit the most. It's quite bright, quite vivid, so you really need not just to thin it down, but just to really have thin highlighting lines. Otherwise it can become quite intense. Next up, for all of our red details, and this includes the pole of the wood and the cloth, we're highlighting in Wild Rider Red. And while I've got this paint to hand, I've also very carefully painted over like a layer paint as a base coat colour this patterning on the top of the banner. For all of our brown details, I've highlighted with Deathclaw Brown. Now while we're doing brown details, I'm also using Carrick Stone, and this is for things like string. So you can see here around his neck, you've got this little bit of string here. I've done it again up the top of the pole here. And you've got a little bit of string on his satchel there. Next up, for our black details, I'm taking Rust Grey. Now this is for all of the black Templar details, the belts and the socks-like boots. For the actual banner, yeah, it's going to get covered in a great big transfer, but I've done some thin highlighting lines of Storm Vermin Fur. For the face and for the hands, where you've got the knuckles, I've done spot highlights of Flayed One Flesh. Now, while we're focusing on the face, I've also taken some white scar, and here I've dotted the eyes. And once the eyes are dry, take an even smaller dot of Abaddon Black, just to dot those eyes. And then we can move on to the metallic details. Next up, I'm prepping the banner. I'm quite old school in this sense of how I like to apply transfers. I like to gloss varnish the area first. So what I use here is Citadel's very own art coat. Apply a thin layer, start at the top, work your way down. Don't put too much on because you don't want it to pull heavily. Just want to get that nice shiny effect so it'll be nice and smooth for when we apply the transfer later. While that's drying, we can do our silver details. And the colour I'm highlighting here, because we used Iron Hand Steel, which is a bright silver, I'm highlighting with Stormhost Silver because it's going to be even brighter. And when highlighting's done, I've also picked out the gems. So you've got two here, you've got one on the forehead, you've got one on the belt buckle, and then one on the scabbard here. Then we can move on to the next stage. Next up, let's focus on those tiny little gems that we did in Stormhost Silver. The colour I've used here is pure Aeldari Emerald. Don't overload your brush, you just want a small amount to get that really bright effect. Now once it's completely dry, we want to make them shiny, and the simplest way of doing it is just applying a small amount of art coat to give it that glossy gem varnish. Now with the gems out of the way, we can focus on the gold details, and nice and simple highlights of Liberator Gold. And then next up, we're going to focus on the transfer, and I'm going to apply that in the next stage. As you can see, I've got my transfer applied, and I've got just a couple of little tips here. Now I'm happy with it. I would like it slightly, just really slightly more to the left. It is what it is. I'm happy with it. But when you're applying this transfer, especially these big ones, on this model, I'd recommend starting at the top. It's what I did. Now I'd prefer it just to be a little bit above, and that's what I'd recommend. Try and get it right up to the just under that shield part, and then just slowly ease it off, flattening it down. But once you're ready, once you're happy with it, I'm going to apply a couple more just here and here. You need to seal it down, and I've matte varnish is the traditional way to then finish this off. I'm using Citadel's very own Storm Shield. So just apply a thin layer all over when you're ready. Now for those of you who like just that bit of extra support just to really see other models of this set and the different colours that you can use, here's the leader of the squad. Some of the differences I did to make him really stand out more. Obviously he's got more of the jade colour, but for the sword, the handle, I've done in Blood Angels Red, shaded with Nuln Oil, whereas the others I've done in Black Templar. Obviously he's got hair rather than the jade plume, which I've done in Black Templar. And I've given him extra gold details. It's not the box art, but it just helps, you know, really show this is the leader. He's in charge of the squad. he is separate. And on that same note, our other different model is the actual drummer. And again, I've differed from the box art. They had a real sort of dark, Sigval burgundy styled, where I've done the jade bit here, and then the tassels they did in jade. I've done the opposite. It stands out quite nicely. But for the actual drum skin, the colour I'd recommend here, which is what I've gone with, is Agrax Earthshade. You can just do a very thin edge highlight all the way around with Pallid Witch Flesh. Gives you a different idea of the models. With that done, all we need to do is base our models. And there we have it. My Jade Warrior is complete. And this is a really straightforward colour scheme that creates an incredible looking box art colour worked model. The Jade Warriors are absolutely fantastic looking. They're just at that perfect stage of having so much good looking detail without becoming extremely tedious to paint. And as models, they would look absolutely perfect as a really unique Cathay inspired Cities of Sigmar army for Age of Sigmar. There's just so many models in this range that you could absolutely proxy in a really cool way. Now I'm so very close now to completing all of my tutorials for the Grand Cathay range, with just 4 more videos planned to go. I'll be the only YouTuber out there who has an easy to follow, easy to do, and highly achievable by absolutely everyone guide for every model of this awesome range. But, and this is a big but, it is support that keeps me going. Support that means you, the awesome Warhammer community, get more guidance and tutorials just like this one. And I do have a lot more planned. So if my video has helped in any way, if it's inspired, then absolutely please click that like button. Subscribe so you know when the latest and next video is out, and tell me what tutorials you would like to see in the future. Share my videos so others can be inspired and helped too. And for all the latest, you can absolutely go on Instagram and check out all the other awesome things I've painted. Until the next time though, look after yourselves and happy hobbying.